Alright, hello. I think I've figured this out again. If anyone could tell me if this mic is on, I would really appreciate it. I'm pretty sure it is. So, sorry I was away for a week. Kind of busy. And this week, a little bit busy still, but I'm gonna stream a little bit of animation today. And if anyone has any questions, let me know in the chat. I think, yeah, I'm gonna get started. It is really hot in here. I feel like you can actually kind of tell. The specularity of my skin. I don't know. I don't remember what it's called. Shininess. Anyway, on to other things. So today, I'm actually not animating something new. I'm tweaking something that I did before. We've set up the Moogu a little bit differently than when I first animated this. Originally I thought that I was gonna have to animate one animation and then apply it to all of the different Moogu types, which I do not, which is a good thing because a heavy Moogu does not run quite the same way that a fire Moogu would. So it means that I get to go back and tweak each animation individually. I apologize if I run out of voice for some reason. Today's just one of those days. Yeah, so today's largely just going to be tweaking something I already have. Let's see. So the first thing that you'll notice about this, or the first thing I want to point out, is that his hips sway back and forth a lot in this animation. And that's because I was trying to compensate for the fact that there are two different Moogu types that are supposed to use the same animation. The heavy Moogu would have a much wider sway to it because it's heavier, whereas the fire Moogu is a little bit more dainty in that way. So it looks a little weird on this guy to have his hips swaying back and forth so much. Which means that I'm going to fix that. If I go over to all these curves, you can see that the Y location is picked, and if I check that out here, Y is pointing up and down, so that's the up and down movement. This is how I check to make sure that I'm animating the right thing. The other thing you can do is just select it and move it. If you move it, generally you get a pretty good sense of what property that is. It's a little bit hard to tell when all of them are selected at once. You can see it looks kind of like colorful spaghetti. Too much spaghetti. So I'm going to find the one that's going left to right, which it's a location, not a scale, and it's not a quaternion, so I know it's one of these, and it has to be red, so it's definitely this one. This is a pretty large curve. If I scale it down, you'll notice that I'm pulling it in closer to itself, and I have normalize on, which means that it puts the curve from 0 to 1, so it's a little bit easier to animate. If I unnormalize it, you'll see that it really isn't moving that much at all. It moves from 0 to 0.02 approximately, and then goes down to negative 0.02 after I've scaled it. And you can see that it's not moving back and forth nearly as much. If I scale it again, you can see that side to side sway, which obviously we don't want that much. So that's the first thing I'm going to do to reduce kind of the silliness of this particular animation. The other thing I want to do, just off the top of my head, go over here and tell this thing not to be selectable, so I don't accidentally select it all the time, because I don't really need to select the mesh for this, I just want to animate. His legs, if you look at them, are really, really far out to the left and right, and that's again to kind of offset the heavy Moogu, because the heavy Moogu's legs are a little bit different. Now that I don't have to do that, I can pull them back to where they were before, which it's the X direction again. And I need to pull them both back so they're about underneath him, which looks like it's about 0.04 according to Blender. So if I put 0.04, that's good. And then on this guy, because it's the other side, I'm going to grab it and pull it down, which makes it go inwards. Graphs are a little confusing, but if you've been animating for a while, you kind of makes sense after a while. So that. So now his legs are actually under him. Makes a little bit more sense. The other thing that I can see just off the top of my head right now is that his hips are rotating quite a bit on the y-axis, which is the green one. Y is always green in Blender, blue is always Z, and then red is always X. And this is showing in local space, so I can tell what axis is actually moving. And I'm thinking that this twists a little bit too much for what I want. So I need to find that, and it's the Y quaternion. You'll see it's much larger because it's all relative. A lot of rotation for one thing will show up really large on the graph, but you might not notice it as much. I don't know if you guys can hear my phone, but it keeps buzzing at me, so I'm gonna turn that off. Anyway, let's see here. If I scale this down, you can tell the difference. I hope. that was pretty obvious. That's a pretty obvious difference. You don't want that. I don't want to break his hips every single time he decides to take a step, so I'm gonna make him look a little more solid in that way. I find that the hips are the most important part when animating anything basically that has hips, because that is usually where the center of weight is, and if you get that right, it looks normal, or believable at least. It might not look normal, but it'll look believable. If you get that wrong, it's very, very apparent that the weight is off, and that it doesn't make any sense that that thing's moving in the way it does. So hips are the bone that I spend the most amount of time on usually. If I actually break apart this run, right now, oh, I see. This is not a perfect loop either. But why? I'll explain what I was going to explain in a second. I need to figure out why this is not looping exactly correct. I assume it's because these two things have been duplicated, but I could be wrong. That seems to loop perfectly. What I was looking at is this. Notice that it stops here and then jumps up, and that's because it's supposed to be looping, but the first and last keyframe are not actually exactly the same. And I don't know why. So if I clean that up, perhaps that will not twitch. You probably wouldn't have noticed that, and I didn't notice it looking at the animation, but seeing it in the graph, you can see that it wasn't lining up properly. I wonder if that happens anywhere else. These all start at 0 and go to 20. What does this guy do? He starts at 1 and goes to 21. Okay, that's good. Yes, it was, in fact, that extra keyframe and that other extra keyframe. For whatever reason, they got duplicated and moved. All right, fixed one small thing that you probably wouldn't have noticed in-game anyway, because Moogu are very small. It's all good. Let's see. I was breaking apart this run cycle. So, you can actually see in the graph here that for up and down motion, take any of these, and for the motion of the legs, add that. Oh yeah, that's already getting really complicated. That's not even all of them. Let's see. There. That one and that one. Okay. There we go. Okay. Blue is the up and down motion. There we go. All right. So, with the legs, the feet in particular, you can see that they step on the ground, they slide across the ground. That's this part here. This part they're probably rotating a little bit. Step. He kind of gets the full stretch of his leg, which is a little bit stretchy just because I wanted to emphasize how stretchy they are. His leg actually breaks, technically. If his legs were completely solid, he would not be able to make this pose. But because Moogu are a little bit squishy, they can stretch just a little bit further to get that extra pose. And he that's the full extension. Again, that's slightly broken. Like if you looked at the knee would probably be here. And the foot probably should end in this area, but it doesn't. And then he hangs there for a few seconds and then pulls his foot back without clipping it into the ground, thankfully. I'm almost thinking that forward extension isn't quite enough. Which is not that one, it will be this one probably. If I undo that, what does it look like? Oopsie. What are you doing? I wonder if there's a stuck key. That was very strange. Usually if you grab on Z or grab on Y, it will actually move it, but it is not. Blender, why are you doing this? Ah well, I'll come back to that later, I suppose. So, the thing I was going to say about the hips earlier is that they actually rotate towards where they're going to step before they take the step. And if you have that offset, it looks a lot like... Why does that say I? None of those keys are correct. Blender, what are you doing? A makes a new key command. That doesn't make sense. That's supposed to be an M. Well, now I'm really confused. All of my key commands are just completely not what they are. How did I manage? It wouldn't be one of my streams without something going just not the way I expected it. And I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing. No. Just pulling up the key configuration. It says Blender. Yes, okay, Blender, yes. Very strange. Huh. Okay, well. Seems to be working fine now. Just when you think you know a program, it decides to do something funky on you. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Oh, maybe... Okay, it just said the USB device is not recognized, so maybe the keyboard just kind of took a turn and decided not to work for a few seconds. I don't know. Anyway, it's back to working now, so that's good. What I was going to say is that if the hips lead the motion, as in they start turning before the legs, that gives a very specific feel for a run. And that you kind of get the sense usually that the power is coming from the waist or from the hips. You could also animate it by offsetting the hips such that instead of going first and rotating, they actually go second. The people's eyebrow. If I'm making eyebrow at things, I apologize, but I also don't apologize because I just do that all the time. That is just always a thing. Usually I just glare at something long enough that it works. They're usually intimidated by the eyebrows. I'm just kidding. I'm assuming that's what that clip is. Oh dear. Thank you. Thank you. That's one thing that I've very consistently been told growing up, is that I have a very animated face, which is kind of funny because now I'm in animation. At least I have a good reference. Yeah, that's always, people are always telling me, oh, your eyebrows are so funny. So yeah, they probably are. I can't see them because they're above my eyes, but I'll take your word for it. Anyway, back to the task at hand. Not being distracted by eyebrows, as I usually am. Let's see. It's a little bit easier sometimes to see if you have the actual gizmo pulled up, because it kind of gives you all of the axes and then you can kind of watch them. Moogu mocap. No, I'm not doing that. Also, hi. You're at work right now. What are you even doing? I totally forget what I was saying. Dang it. Right, gizmos and such. You can see how the y-axis is turning. Mocap. Anyway, sorry, I'm so distracted now. You guys all got me all distracted. Anyway, you can see how much the y-axis is turning by where the x-axis is. You can see that the red is going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So that's a slightly easier way for me to tell what's actually going on, because obviously if something is a complete circle and it's rotating this way and it's a circle, I'm never gonna know how much it's rotating or how fast, because I can't tell. I don't have to apologize. This is an interesting stream already. I'm entertained. I don't know about you guys, but I'm entertained. Anyway. So, you can see from the X line that if I do this a little bit slower, there's actually a delay. Okay, so, as I was saying earlier, you can kind of make it feel like the hips are the ones pulling forth the moment, like the momentum, and like they're the ones that are driving the motion. Or you can delay it and it feels like the legs are driving the motion and the hips are kind of along for the ride. So in this case, it's actually backwards from what I said earlier. I swear I'm paying attention. They actually have a bit of a delay. And you can see that because at this frame, this leg's already pretty far forward and the hips aren't even perfectly square yet. That doesn't happen for about a frame. So in reality, I could pull this back so that it catches up, or even pull it even farther back so that the hips are not driving the motion. And I don't know if I have enough experience to know which one is better in which cases. I usually just eyeball it, and if it feels right, then I'm like, okay, that is probably good. It depends on the creature that I'm animating, honestly, and maybe one day I will actually figure out exactly why it looks better in some cases than others, but for now it's just kind of gut reaction. I'll figure it out. And when I do figure it out, I'll let you know, but yeah. For now, it's just, this looks like it feels good, I suppose. So this is hips driving the action. And if I move it forward again, it's legs driving the action. It's possibly more evident in the back of this Moogu, just because they don't have too much of a front. I guess it is usually easier to see in the back anyway. You can see that there's kind of a bit of a delay. I kind of want to move my head to it because that's how it makes sense to me. I'm like, yes, it does this motion. And with Moogu, you always want that butt shake, just every time. Doesn't matter what one it is. That's what we want, probably. Someone can correct me if we don't. But I think the Fire Moogu are probably pretty sassy, and they just have that run, you know. Heavy Moogu kind of do that too. I'm really excited to animate some of the other Moogu that are coming down the pipeline. I really can't wait for that. Do you want the shake even if they hop? Yes, a little bit, because I don't intend to actually make them hop with both legs. It's more to say that they have more of a vertical component than the Heavy Moogu do. So in Trello, which obviously no one outside of our place would have access to that, I have to animate the Fire Moogu having more of a hop, which was my way of saying they have more of like a bounciness and a kind of like a more aggressive vertical movement. Whereas the Heavy Moogu are a little bit more sauntery. What is Trello? Good question. I don't even know. Sticky notes, but on the internet. But more people can use them. That's my best explanation. Anyway. Where was I? I don't even remember. Right. I feel like a little bit of butt sway is good. I can always tone down how much it sways. right? By doing that. And this has more of a thud to it. I don't At some point I just break down into it kind of feels like and sounds like and looks kind of like this, and then give a random sound effect noise, and that makes sense to me and probably no one else. At the end of the day, I am still learning how to animate, which means I'm still learning how to explain how I animate. Our cinematography teacher always said, I think it was cinematography, that if you understand something, you can explain it. I might get that entirely wrong. It might have been someone else. I've probably heard it from more than one person. I feel like Brian would say that. Matt, you can tell me if Brian said that or not. If you're still listening. I don't know. We were in the same class, for anyone who doesn't know who Matt is. Yes. Okay. Back to the task at hand. Distracted as I am. Let's see here. Vertical component. So, I want these guys to kind of bounce up and down a little bit more. Sounds like him? Okay, yeah. That's what I thought, but... Might have... Oh, you know who it was? It was my physics teacher in grade 12. Brian probably said it too. He's a good guy and very smart. And my physics teacher was the same way. And he was always like, if you understand something, you can explain it to someone else. So... if I can't explain this to you, it means it's a gut feeling and I'm still figuring it out. Or else I'm just having one of those days. Could be one of those too. Right, okay. I have to figure out what the vertical component is, which is Y in this case, up and down. So this is the up and down motion. You can see by this graph that he's got a slowed down. This is reversed. It looks like it's going up, but in fact he's going down. And then this part is going up. So you have to look at it flipped and understand that this part closer to 0 is down and closer to the negatives is up. And that's because if you go into edit mode, this bone is facing upside down. That is why. So its y-axis is actually pointing that way. And that is because I wanted it to rotate from up here instead of down here. Anyway, back to pose mode. Just means I have to understand the graph a little bit less intuitively, which probably my fault for rigging it that way. I could probably have a duplicate bone and like rotate it from a certain way and still have Y go this way and the going down going the other way, but whatever. I'm the one rigging it and I'm the one animating it, so I was fine with it. Anyway, I say all that to say that he has a slow descent, which is very much delayed and very exaggerated. Obviously, he stretches quite a bit at that point. And then very rapidly moves up. Again, very delayed. At this point in the animation, he should probably be moving up. If I was animating this a little bit more realistically, his hips would move up to accommodate the fact that his leg is straightening. But you'll notice that that doesn't look good at all when I move it like that, and that's because there's also this forward and backward component as well, which is not offset. And if I offset it like that, then that's kind of what it's a little bit closer to what it should have looked like. Obviously that doesn't look right. Because these guys are a little bit squishier than others, and that movement is really exaggerated. I'm not entirely convinced that there isn't like a clip at some point, like something is not lining up. Is correct. Okay, what is happening here? At frame 0 and frame 20, everything is lined up except for the hips, which means I think that this is moved over one more than it should be, maybe. Not that one. This one? Something is scaled incorrectly, that it doesn't loop at exactly 20. Oh, maybe it's... Oh, What is the difference between this frame and this frame? 20. This one's 1. This one. Oh! There we go. Now try. Okay, so you can see that between these two frames it's now rotated incorrectly, but the spot is correct. Yes? Yes. Okay. This is what happens when you scale things and they're supposed to loop perfectly, and sometimes if you don't scale them exactly, they will incorrectly line up. Because instead of 20 frames, it now has some of the frames on 21. It takes 21 frames to do it for only some of the components in this area, which is a pain and hard to notice unless you've been staring at it for 18 million years. Doesn't appear to be twitching, even though this doesn't look like it lines up. Let's see. If I bring this up to 0, what does this end on? 22. That doesn't seem right. Shouldn't it be 20? Which means that this should be... This needs to be 20 frames long, and now it is, but this keyframe is incorrect. So if I bring this keyframe over there, that should now not do anything. Okay. Well, small things like that, totally would not notice in game, but I'm gonna fix them anyway, because why not? Right, so I want more of a verticality to this, and the problem inherently, just with this mesh and with this rig, is that at resting state, this bone is not exactly up and down. Which means that I'm not animating it with the Z perfectly up like this. Depends if I do it on the normal. Yes, okay, I'm animating it like this, where you can see that up and down is actually several degrees rotated. And that means that in order to get that up and down component, I'm not just closing the door. I'm not just animating on one axis, I'm actually animating on two. If you notice, if I pull it up this way, I have to animate it going this way a little bit and this way. This and this. Which is exactly why you always make your feet, when you're rigging feet, exactly straight. Because trying to move something on this axis by not being able to isolate it is really, really frustrating to animate. It causes all sorts of problems when you're trying to optimize and balance things out and stuff like that. Don't do it. If you ever rig something, rig the foot flat, try to rig the hips up and down as best you can, or else have the bone rotated correctly and then use another bone that you then copy the rotations from. There are many ways to get around this, which I learned probably after the fact, after I rigged this little guy, but neither here nor there. I have to go back, and I have to adjust both this and this at the same time to get more of a verticality. And the question is, how do I want to do that? So I don't want it to move any far. There we go. Sometimes because I don't innately completely understand the relationship between these two lines, I can't just look at this blue and go, oh yes, it moves it, you know, back and forth perfectly. I have to kind of play around with it and just watch and see what it actually does. I'm thinking that this it might benefit from being moved forwards is what I was thinking. Not entirely sure why I have this extra keyframe. I don't think I need those. This looks more like it's going in a circle this way. Okay. Now the other thing I'd like to do is move the head up and down more. Because you see that the head's actually pretty stable, and that's because the head is animated independently of what's going on with the hips, and that's just something that's nice about this rig, is that I can pick the head up and kind of wiggle it around as much as I want. And I would like it to be more apparent that it's kind of bouncing up and down, so I need to find the y-axis, which has got a pretty funky curve. Why did I rotate all of these like that? That is so funny. Usually what I'll do if I need a curve like this, just like a sine wave, I'll put one keyframe here at the top, one keyframe at the bottom, and then that just kind of figures itself out. But for whatever reason, when I was animating this last, I just took the keyframes and rotated them all so that their tangents kind of made this curve anyway. Why? I do not know. Anyway, if I scale this on Y, it should give me a better curve. Yes, this is exactly what I wanted. Maybe not that much. I don't know if anyone can notice this as I'm playing this back, but do you notice that it kind of pauses slightly when this foot reaches over here? It's because it does take exactly 20 frames to play this animation, which means that on frame 0 and frame 20 it's the exact same frame, which if you're paying careful attention you'll notice there's a bit of a pause, just slightly, which I can fix by making it loop right before that one. I'm also thinking that the hips and the head are very off. They've got two independent circles going on basically. This one's moving like this and this one's offset by probably 90 degrees. And it makes it look very fluid because there's a lot of follow through, but I actually want it to do something not quite like that. I don't want it to be perfectly in sync. Not like that. I don't want it to look like it's a rubber ball bouncing on a elastic band or something. That looks like it's running backwards. Now it looks like it's going backwards. That's funny. If you stare at something for long enough, it just looks weird no matter what you do. It's like writing the same word over and over again and then it just stops looking like a word. When I was in second semester of second year, I think it was, in school, I was writing a plant simulation. Plant did not look like the word plant after a while. I wrote it in so many scripts for so many things and in comments, and just every variable had something to do with it, and just the word did not look like plant. Didn't look like a word. Completely unrelated to this, of course, but I'm also feeling like his hips, they do sway a lot in the Z-axis. You can kind of tell they do this. I don't know why I got extra keyframes lying all over the place. I really don't need a keyframe there. The curve is fine, and it can interpolate quite nicely without that, so. Yeah, exactly. It's like when you say a word too many times, it starts losing its meaning, for sure. In this case, you write it too many times and your brain's like, that just isn't a word. I don't know what that is. Just a bunch of symbols and it looks wrong. And it looks wrong no matter how you spell it, or if it's all capitals, if it's all lowercase, cursive, just the whole word looks wrong all the time. Hamburger 20 times, yes. I need hamburgers to have meaning. Can't say that too many times. Hamburgers are too important. Just kidding. One thing that I did, without really saying much about what I was doing, notice that I lessened the sway that he has back and forth like this, and it makes it look a little more rigid and a little more poppy. Like, it's not quite the word that I am trying to describe, but rigid makes it look a little more energetic, I think, is what I'm trying to say. So instead of being fluid, the Fire Moogu is almost kind of the opposite of that in some sense. Like, he's still squishy and he still extends and stretches, but without that really big hip sway, and by offsetting some of the delayed timing. I don't know if you can see my hands, but I hope they're in frame. If I delay some of this so that it's a little bit more in step with itself, it looks more rigid, which makes it look a little more energetic. And that is the idea for the Fire Moogu. The Heavy Moogu is the one that saunters and has lots of follow through because it's just so big that it's got that weight to throw around. But I want these Fire Moogu to feel a little more, like they pop a little bit more. Be kind of nice if I had a comparison, like what it looked like before versus what it looked like now, but I do not. All I did really was make the hips more rigid. I need hamburgers to have meaning. Yes. Man, I got 2 clips in this stream. I'm doing really well today. What else about this guy? I don't know if his little nubby bit at the top is doing what it's supposed to be doing in this particular case. No. Incorrect. Thank you. Incorrect knobby bit. Should be going that way, I think. Right? If I go this way... No, you're not supposed to do that. Haha, you guys and your puns. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. If he moves this way, oh, I see, I'm animating the wrong property. It's like, why is this not affecting what I'm doing? I want this one. That makes sense. This should not be rotating this way on that movement. If I've got follow through going on, it should be going in the exact opposite direction. Not with that timing though. What do I need here? He moves down this way. So it should be closer to that, I think. No, wrong way. There we go. Notice that when he moves down this way, this still kind of stays. It's just getting to... I'm pointing at my screen like you'd see where my finger is pointing to. It just has gotten to its stopped moving point. And then as the Moogu pauses in the middle and then starts going back towards the other side, that's when it starts to swing out and complete that motion. That is exactly what follow through is about. And now you can see it makes a little bit more sense. At least I think it does. With follow through, with curves, it's really important that to get that offset, you have to figure out exactly when it needs to start moving back in the direction that the original object was going in. So for the first object, which is the head, it's probably moving back here. its curve probably looks something like that. With the follow through, it's got that delay of these 3 frames and then starts its action. It's basically a very similar motion, it's just offset by some amount of time. And it also depends kind of on how big the thing is that has the follow through. If it's a bigger object, it'll take even longer, which just goes back to physics. If you've got something with a small mass, it's going to have a high acceleration. It'll move up to speed much more quickly. And if you have something that's got a larger mass, something that's heavy, it takes a lot longer to get up to speed. You can't escape physics. Not in animation, not in real life. Physics is just everywhere. And that's why we love it. I'm also thinking that I might rotate his head a little bit. Keep his chin up, a little bit like that. Which axis is that? Okay, yes, it is the X. Quaternion X. You hate physics? Oh, how can you hate physics? Run for your life. That's what that says to me. If you're like running like this, like, ah! I think I'm also going to... Physics killed your farm? Your farm? I thought you meant your family. Still be terrible either way. Physics caused my crops to fail. Oh no! Dang physics making the water come down from the sky. How dare it. Oh, that's funny. I appreciate all your jokes. I'm just saying. Not convinced this needs... Not convinced it doesn't need more up and down. Physics-based chemtrails. Oh! There are so many jokes I could make right now. I specifically am not going to make any of them. Goodness. Lesson learned, kids. Do not rotate your bones when you only want to animate them on one axis, because you get stuff like this happening. Wow, that is probably the greatest thing I've seen all day. Yes, this is how people run, right? Not moving at all? Not up and down? Nope, just completely solid. It looks like... I don't even know what that looks like. That just looks funny. And now he looks kind of like he's sneak running. It's kind of funny how you can really give a lot of character just by moving one bone. The hips happen to be really central, but like this is kind of like a tentative run. Like he's not quite sure of what he's doing. Still doesn't make much sense, but... And this is kind of like a I'm way too confident and really like breaking my legs kind of run. Gotta find that nice median. Like something like that, probably, so he's not stretching so much in that one pose over here. This is more of a happy trot, I would say. I definitely feel like if I look at this for too long, he starts looking like he's running backwards, and that's when I know I've been staring at the same angle for way too long. It's still ever so slightly not in the same spot. Why? Those all check out. They're all exactly 20 frames long. Need that up for comparison, I suppose. I don't know. X is fine. one's at 3, this one's at 23. Y is fine. 0, 20, correct. And what is the W doing? 20, 20. That's very strange. Usually the W quaternion is the one that's messing me up because I don't really pay that much attention to it, largely because I can't animate with it. It does something different every time I move it. It's not scale that's changed. Scale doesn't change at all. What the schmeck? That was very odd. Is the root moving at all? No. Oh well. No one is gonna notice if it is probably like 2 millimeters off when it loops. And in fact, Unity would probably correct that because it's such a small difference that it would go, it's basically the same, just duplicate the keyframe. Weird. Yeah, the difference, you would not notice it. In fact, the Moogu are probably so small. Yes, unless there's giant fire Moogu. I think we need that. They're so small that even if you animated them and there was a difference of like 2 millimeters in Blender, at the size that they're at, the pixels would not differentiate between being the right color and not being colored at all with the hips. So it's really unlikely that you would ever see that difference. And I mean, it's not like you can even tell. Well, maybe you can, I cannot. Do you see where it stops looping? We do need giant fire Moogu though. I feel like that's very important. Not sure I like what's going on with this mouth region. I feel like it's not in sync anymore with what I was working on. Something like that. Okay, I don't remember what this looked like at the beginning of this. Maybe it was better or worse. I think this is more in line with what I was thinking for kind of a poppier animation. Yeah. Didn't have to add any keyframes. I actually removed some, which is nice. I think I'm gonna go back and kind of fix the rig because I'm pretty sure I was thinking about this like a week and a half ago probably about something I did with this rig. I think my subconscious was like working on this without me knowing, and then just out of the blue I was like, oh wait, I forgot. I think I set the weight wrong for this one parent-child relationship constraint. One of these should be 100, I think, I thought to myself at the time. Because otherwise we're missing influence. Yeah, anyway, that thought occurred to me, so I think after this video I'm gonna go fix that, see if it changes any of the animations, but yeah, that is it for me, I think. If anyone has any questions at the last second, let me know. And if anyone was wondering why I'm like half disappearing, it's just because I decided to be a ghost today. Yeah. Well, have a good night, everyone, and save your work. I didn't save any of mine. Kind of surprised nothing crashed on me, but what are Moogu made of? So spooky, yes. Moogu are made of love and grape jelly. That's all I got. Yeah. See ya.